Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today we're back with another dungeon, and this one is kind of one I'm adding into the mix, so I'm just going to let you guys know about this. First things first, let's take a look at the actual damage dealers, okay? I'll start putting this at the front of the run now when I can. It's a freaking Destro Warlock. Destro Warlock, Frost DK, and Vengeance Demon Hunter, or no, Havoc Demon Hunter, of course, so... three strong classes. I don't really favor Destro, and frankly, you're going to see this guy in all his glory. Also going to see how strong Frost has the potential to be. I mean, look at that guy's really not exceptionally geared, right? He wouldn't be geared enough to fit into our raid team, yet he's doing incredibly well in the dungeon. But anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about the timing here, why I'm adding a Blood DK in the middle of nowhere, and what the future is going to look like. So I'm going to try to get this out as quick as humanly possible. I did it on Saturday, and the patch is Tuesday. So I already had another video scheduled to go live Monday, but I think I'm going to now push that to Tuesday morning and get this out Saturday, at some point Saturday. But regardless... the reason I'm doing it is because they recently confirmed that when 7.2 comes out, you will get credit for previous week's dungeon as if it was the good, like the better version of the dungeon. So I'm doing a 12 here because it's all I could find that would take me. I'm quite undergeared, to be fair. I really do not feel confident doing higher keystones on this character. But I am doing it because... yeah, it gives me very good, 905. It's going to give me a 905 reward. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here, but stumbling to do so, if you do a 10 this week, it counts as a 10 after 7.2, basically, even though a 10 in 7.15 is very easy compared to a 10 in 7.2. So a 10 in 7.15, is something that we've been doing all expansion, but now it's going to give a 905. So this is a great, if you're seeing this, you still have a few days, I would really consider you trying to do it on your alts. This is a 12. I wish we just did a 10. It would have been so much easier, but... yeah, this is a nightmare. Absolutely. From the first pull, you guys can see we do not have the damage for this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. This group is very, very, very low on DPS. And frankly, one of the problems is having a freaking Destro Warlock. I don't really know why. The guy was talking about it at the beginning of the dungeon, but yeah, Destro Warlock is not a very good spec right now, especially for skittish. Anytime mobs are running all around, it's going to be difficult to get Destro damage. But, Affliction and Demo would really thrive in this situation. So I honestly, that's why we're doing these videos, basically, because we're taking a look at the, what kind of damage we're getting from certain classes and stuff like that. But you could already see, I mean, I sped this up about 0.5 times. It was a 40-minute run. I've turned it into a 30-minute run. So yeah, these things are dying quite slowly, and you can see the chart on the left there. So another thing that definitely sucks is I love my Blood DK. It's definitely my favorite thing to tank on. I like Prop Pally and Vengeance, but they're not as fun for me as Blood, mostly because of the amount of control I have as a Blood. You're going to see the amount of healing I do at the end. It's absolutely insane how much healing I can do. I do more healing to myself than the Druid heals me for, so that's just so cool. But regardless... without the damage that I do as Prot, and even as I do more damage as Vengeance than I do as Blood. So I've been saying this for months now. Am I missing something? If you guys can help me out with damage, look at what I'm doing in the dungeon, please let me know, because I don't know, I'm like sub 8, I'm like 879 or something like that, and I feel like the damage I'm doing is very low. So that's a big part of it, and I don't know how much that affects Skittish. Obviously, Threat is a problem. I don't know exactly how Skittish works either. So it's Skittish and Teaming this week. Now, the video that comes out on Tuesday is going back 2 weeks of fixes. So let's focus the discussion on this topic here. Does anyone know anything about Threat and Skittish? So we've had this discussion, myself and other tanks that I play with and talk to. They said things like, it is just like classic Threat, like if people pull off you, it's gonna be on them. You have to taunt and then you get the threat back, all this. But then other people said it's not like that at all. It's just randomly drops threat, or randomly you lose a bunch of threat, so you have to react to it. And that seems way more logical, because sometimes all the mobs will be on me and then all of a sudden somebody just pulls off. And I was fairly certain that for 1 point of damage, it was 10 times threat that of a healer or DPS, non-tank. So if I was doing 100k DPS and they were doing 1,000,000 DPS, we would be doing the same threat. but that doesn't seem to be applicable here. Like, as you see, I'm doing about the same DPS, but sometimes mobs are running away and stuff, so I'm not sure. Maybe one way or the other, I'm probably confused on one thing, and either way, I just don't find satisfaction in DK DPS. Like, the Blood, man, they really just fucking... coming off last expansion, guys, you probably know they were one of the strongest tanks that ever iteration. Like, the best iteration of tanking ever was Blood DK, if you ask me, for 5-mans. They could do absolutely insane things, and while they kept a lot of the kit, like with the grips and healing and stuff like that, it wasn't even about that. They had incredible damage reduction and incredible DPS, two things that they simply don't have right now. But the more I play them, the better I find them. One of our tanks in our, like a guy who does a lot of 5-mans, he's done like multiple 20s and stuff like that. He is Blood, and at first I was really skeptical of Blood, prior to 7.1 or 1.5, whenever they added back Icebound Fortitude, I can't remember. It was a big deal. So there you go. Somebody aggroes a bunch of fucking mobs. Like, this is the most frustrating thing about pugging, right? Because there's no accountability. Like, they're like, mobs incoming. It's like, we wiped then. There's a fucking wipe. You can't aggro those and expect to survive that on teaming. So that's that. But anyway, yeah. In terms of Blood DPS, I just don't know. It's a sad thing to see. But yeah, like I said, the guy in our guild who's doing like all the higher keys and stuff, he's playing a Blood DK, and apparently he's doing very well with it. I think they are a very, very, like, you're going to see it here, okay? I'm quite undergeared for this, so I think this is a good example of what Blood can do. Frankly, I would not bring myself to a 12. This is uncomfortable having this low of gear, and I still haven't even upgraded my second legendary. I basically not played this character since probably the last time I streamed this character being played. So, I mean, we're talking about probably around Christmas, maybe even earlier. Yeah, it could be sub-Christmas, like we're talking November. So I've not played this character in like 3 months. Whenever the patch came out that upgraded the legendaries, I did that quickly, and that was probably the end of it. So I still have a 910 legendary on, but regardless, yeah, it's not helping the fact that, I'm not doing a lot of DPS, but the survivability feels absolutely monumental. There's a few times I do die in the dungeon. Obviously, one of them was there. We didn't have any hope of killing that pack, but in general, I know a lot of the damage taken is going to damage dealers, so it's a little bit harder to care about this stuff on skittish weeks, but oh, it's just so good, man, to see myself just, everybody around me is getting slaughtered, and then with all the different self-healing we have, Umbilicus Eternus is so freaking cool. And, I do use a lot of health pots and the lock rocks or whatever, but yeah, it's just really comfortable. I feel really comfortable. The thing I don't feel comfortable with, though, is looking at the chart. Now, on my Paladin, I feel like I would be taking way more damage, and even this exact group on my Paladin, I feel like would be way more dangerous, and it's mostly just because of how little damage we have. So, of course, as a prop Paladin, I would do way better DPS, and the run would have been way faster anyway. But regardless, the survivability I have in my Paladin, which is, 20 item levels higher. Granted, it's probably less optimized in this character, although I can't even see how that would be true at this point. I have more points on my prop Paladin now than I do on my Blood. At one point, that wasn't true. And I have like actual enchants, even though they're not good enchants. I have crit enchants from being a holy Paladin. But yeah, on Blood, I don't even think I have an enchant on my cloak, or I think I might have my neck. But yeah, regardless, at one point I felt like I was way more confident at Blood than Prot. Now I think it's probably about equal. And I would say, like, I would lean towards saying Blood is way more survivable than Prot, but the difference is that Prot just brings such intense DPS. Like, I could be number one on DPS right now. If my Paladin was in this group, either as Holy or Prot, I would be number one on DPS. This chart is absolutely pathetic. And a lot of them, yeah, they just don't, I don't know, this group they're just not of the mindset, The DK is quite good. Like I said, he's probably the only one who's actually playing at a high enough level. I feel like a lot of these, these pugs that I run, you get guys who kind of just, they only have the gear they have because they maybe got a couple lucky Titan Forges or something like that. Like, they're not actually... if they're 800 and, if they're 890 plus, they're not 890 because they've put a lot of time into their character, something like that. Because I feel like sometimes you just look at that, the Warlock damage, I don't know. That's really bad damage. Like, and even the Druid did so little damage. It's just, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to do these packs. And you're going to see some really tough packs come up here. But, this is one time where, I have everything up. I got pre-pot. I got a good DPS trinket on. It's not the best, but it's pretty good. And I have, Dancing Rune Weapon or whatever it's called now. So absolutely very, very, very good damage. Top in the AoE. This is a great pull for DK. Anytime you have all of these things up, you're pretty much unkillable. Get Bone Storm rocking early and you're fucking dominating. But without CDs, it's like I'm doing 100k. I'm literally, there's no word to lie, 100k DPS, right? On 5 targets. It's bad. It's really bad. And I just don't know what I'm doing wrong. I understand consumption does a lot of DPS, so you have to use that as well. Like, basically, you need all your CDs up to do good damage. And if you have them up, you're going to do really good damage. And if you don't have any of them up, then you're not going to do very good damage. But I still don't even have my 35th trait on this character. This is a character I just really fell behind on. You know, Legion has so much going on in it that it's almost impossible to keep alts up. Like, I don't have enough time, and I constantly sit here thinking, like, is me playing this DPS character even worth it right now? And a lot of the times the answer to me is no. Or not DPS character. I don't know why I said that. This alt character, is it even worth it? And a lot of the times I can just answer that question no, because, you know, I still need artifact power in my paladin. That's why I'm doing the 5-mans overall. I still need legend. I still only have 3 legendaries on my paladin. People in my guild have 8. You know what I mean? So it's like, I should be playing that character more, doing more things on that character, but I just don't really want to play it all the time. So, you know, that's kind of a problem with Legion. People have talked about that. Like, you know, there's so much to do that's almost too much to do, and it makes some of it unfun. But I love playing the game. I love doing dungeons. And one of my favorite things to do in dungeons is to play from different perspectives. Like, so I've enjoyed healing a lot. I've enjoyed tanking a lot over the years now, especially. But I like doing it on multiple characters. Like when we did challenge modes, I did it on like 9 characters. I did every single tank in challenge modes in MOP, and I think like four tanks, and then I did it my paladin as a healer. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. I love tanking 5-mans, but you know, it's difficult to keep up in Mythic Pluses because the inflation of gear item level keeps going up and up with legendaries. People are reaching like 930 item level in the group finder because they have 8 legendaries. It's just not, it's not even, you know, realistic. But unfortunately, it's going to have to be something that I deal with going forward. And that means that a lot of groups are going to be asking for more ridiculous requirements constantly because people don't seem to understand exactly what item level denotes. People think, oh my god, he's 920 item level. He's going to do very good DPS. But in reality, some of those people who are 920 are actually sub 900 equipped. In fact, this happened to me a couple weeks ago. I joined a group. A guy was 918 in the queue, and when I got him in the group, he was 890. So yeah, it's a bit silly. It doesn't always add up. Obviously, item level means very little, but anyway, let's talk a little bit more about the dungeon. So you're going to see these packs are really giving us fits here. Now, this is a tough week. I didn't really think about it. This is obviously, you guys know, this is one of my favorite dungeons. I think it is my favorite dungeon. I really do like the way the dungeon unfolds, but these mobs, yeah, there's like a freaking whole forest of these mushrooms here. So I don't know, what would you guys say about this? How would you guys handle this with 3 of these? You know, sometimes when we do skittish and teaming weeks, we just try to CC 2 mobs. I don't know. It's probably impossible in a PUG. I don't know how you would even do it, but how would you guys handle the same situation if you were tanking, especially as Blood DK, tanking these dungeons with, you know, 3 of those keepers and all the DPS problems we have and all that? I don't know. It just seems like we're setting ourselves up to fail here just by pulling a single pack. So I'm not necessarily against teaming, but I think I don't like skittish very much when it's combined with teaming. On its own, it's interesting, but like, I don't know, you just can't really do much about it. I don't really know how to deal with it. So people are constantly getting punched and people are dying to other things. I just feel helpless. I feel like I might as well not be there, mostly because I'm not doing any damage, you know, as a tank. I'm used to playing my prop paladin, especially where I'm doing just absolutely bombastic damage. And I don't know, like I said, once again, so we could answer the questions about threat if you guys know anything about it, but I still don't actually know if it's DPS related, if the equivalency is like it was in Classic, where, you know, the more damage you do, the more threat you do generally. I don't know if it works like that. So unfortunately, as Blood, I just feel weak. I look at the chart and see myself doing like 100k on bosses, and it's like, But anyway, yeah, so we're almost to the boss here. Now, you know, things should be easier when we fight bosses. For the most part, they are. You're going to see something really funny, though, when we actually get up here. But anyway, the conversation going on in chat is one reason why I love to show chat, because sometimes people in these groups say some really ridiculous things. And these people clearly had no idea that 7.2 is changing things as they are. Like we talked about at the beginning of the dungeon. For some reason, they're going to allow you to get credit for the new Like I said, a plus 10 from 715 is very easy compared to a plus 10 from 7.2, but they'll give you the rewards anyway. So that's a very generous way to get a lot of gear easily. I'm going to try to do it on my other characters too, but it's very unlikely I will. This character is geared enough, but yeah, realistically, I don't think my Demon Hunter could have done this. That's just no way. We probably would have struggled in here even worse. So it's a good opportunity, though. I love the way, the dungeon reward systems have unfolded, and it really keeps people doing them. Like you see, this guy, he's going to say at the end, this Frost DK, obviously doing very good. He's going to say at the end, like, I was honestly thinking about leaving when I saw how bad our DPS was after the first boss or something like that. But I didn't want to be a dick. I can't remember when he says it, but it's like, I mean, dude, first of all, if you leave a fucking Mythic Plus, you should get a fucking bullet because, yeah, it's so shitty. It's so hard to get into these groups sometimes. Like, it takes forever. Sometimes people, like I said, ask for ridiculous things. So you finally get in a group, things are going somewhat well, and then one thing goes poorly and somebody leaves, and then that's that. The key is gone. Pretty much no chance of continuing, and yeah, it's a really unfortunate thing to have to deal with. So anyway, these guys were just playing a bit conservative here. Like I said, I mean, the DPS is moderate at best. We don't have any burst. I think that's the big problem. Other than the DK, like the Demon Hunter is just not doing any burst, and I don't really know much about destruction. Honestly, this is, I think, probably one of the first times I played with a destruction warlock. I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at old videos and stuff because I can't remember the last time I played with a destruction warlock. We have 2 warlocks in the guild. Neither play destruction. I don't think they have at any point. So I don't know much about the spec overall, but as you see there, yeah, so that's what I was trying to get at. One of the funniest things that you'll ever see happen with the PUG, I said I need like 15 seconds on pot or whatever it was, and this fucking Demon Hunter just jumps in, just aggro's the boss as a fucking Demon Hunter. It's like, what the fuck? But yeah, anyway, like, I'm trying to pre-pot on these bosses here because I'm worried about damage, worried about, all the stuff, and these people are just not making it any easier. But as you see, the damage disparity is absolutely embarrassing. The Frost DK is doing, 50% almost of the DPS total, and, part of that is me and the Resto Druid. Resto Druid should be doing a good 200k on a fight like this. There's almost nothing to heal, especially on the pull, and you can get a good amount of damage in as a Resto Druid early on. And Blood DK, yeah, it's just struggling. I didn't get the pot, obviously. I don't think I had my CDs up anyway, so yeah, it's just a tough thing. I don't know. It's really see, if Blood was doing the damage that Prod is, if Blood was doing the damage it was last expansion, even if other tanks were better, I think I would be playing this character a lot more. But I really love its tanking model, which is funny, right? Because that was the complete opposite of why I started playing DK. And WoD, like, the only reason I switched to DK, I was playing Monk, like, a lot. And then I switched to DK because everybody was saying that, like, Gore Fiends and the damage they do is absolutely invaluable. And look at that little, look at that dirty grip. Unfortunately, that's the last time you're going to see anything dirty from this hallway, other than maybe a couple dead bodies on the ground that are gathering some flies. This is probably one of the most brutal stretches of any dungeon I've ever done with any group, and you're going to see it happen immediately here. Obviously, let's just watch it. But anyway, yeah, so the Blood DK thing, the DPS they're doing or lack thereof, I feel like it's got to be partially on me, but I've talked to, like I said, the DK in our guild who's been, he's been doing a lot of 5 minutes. I talked to him about it a while ago, and he says, like, yeah, he has trouble doing any damage as well. And frankly, it's quite noticeable. Like, when you're competing for multiple tiers of a challenge, like, you're not just trying to get gold where once you figure it out, but things change every week, and there's like basically 3 timers on the dungeon that you're worried about. When you're doing that weekly, it's like, not what you're after, when you got 3 DPS and no DPS from the other slots. It's just so much easier. Like, after last night we did a couple high keys, and I was on prop, but our healer was not, doing very much damage, and I was struggling because obviously I'm like mostly prioritized for healing, so I wasn't doing very much damage. Like, I could have done a lot more damage, obviously, if I had the proper gear. And it's just really noticeable. Like, when I play healer and other, people who are actually like meant to tank are tanking, it's a whole different game. We just dominate. Together we do almost usually over 1 million DPS put together on these bosses. So, how could you say that's bad? You know what I mean? That's usually about the same as an actual damage dealer's burst would be. So, between 2 slots that aren't meant to actually contribute that much, we're contributing more than actual damage dealers. So, I don't know. It just makes things go so much faster. And the amount of times, especially when I'm as healing, the amount of times when I feel like, well, we only got 3 chests because I was doing this much damage. Like we beat it by like 30 seconds. And that is easily the amount of time I shaved off the dungeon just on bosses alone. That's not even, talking about dropping some AoE down on trash and stuff like that. So it's going to be difficult to, we're going to talk about remaking the tier list now. The only reason I think we talk about this in the video that I pushed forward. It's going to be really out of order, guys. It's an unfortunate thing. I didn't plan on recording this one, but I have to do it. It's too interesting not to. But yeah, I think we're going to talk about that in that video. And yeah, pushing the patch, is going to be a really, I didn't even think about it. I completely forgot about it. I probably should have waited on the DPS one. But yeah, since we're going to be adding the Kara and the new dungeon into the mix, we'll have to get a lot more research done on how those dungeons function, just to see if there's any very interesting like little new areas that are incredibly resource intensive, incredibly utility intensive, stuff like that. And then we'll have to factor that in when we do the tank and healing tier list. But anyway, here's another great little example. See that fucking imp right there? Pulls that water elemental. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's stuff like this is why people leave, and it's really frustrating to have to deal with it. It's a difficult thing to overcome as well. Like, I don't know how to teach these people. Like, I don't know what to say to these people. Luckily, I've got battle res here, but I just don't really know what to say to these people. It's like, if you guys had your heads on straight for this dungeon, we could have been done already. We could have got this. We could have beat it by a minute or whatever, But the amount, we full wipe because somebody aggro's mobs, and now we're sitting here fighting a mob that we don't even need the count of. I mean, we're, first of all, way over count, obviously. It's a very difficult thing to get count in this dungeon when you don't have any way to skip mobs. And obviously, we could have done a control wipe. We got 3 reses, but that was not going to happen at the end. So, yeah, we just overpull. And unfortunately, in those dungeons, that's one thing that does suck about this when you're pugging. It's a great dungeon. I love it. The flow of it's awesome. But if you're going to overpull, you better have the DPS to compensate for that. So, luckily, no more big ads spawn. If like 3 big ads spawned here instead, that would, yeah, I would probably just unsubscribe from this game, because that would be pretty soul crushing. But kind of just paying attention to it this time. Last time, I don't know if people just weren't paying attention or what, but all the while you see people chatting and just kind of talking. It's just really, I don't know, it's kind of strange. It doesn't feel conducive to, progression 5-man content, but anyway, this boss is nothing really going on. The thing that I did notice with Skittish the most is how infrequently I have threat on bosses as well. I kind of didn't think about that. I guess, when you do Skittish, you think mostly, especially with teaming, it's all trash, right? But like, yeah, especially if I don't have CDs up, man, like it's a tough thing. It's a tough thing. I feel like blood is really just, I don't know, they're just not doing enough damage. And without CDs, they do almost, look how little damage I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? That's on the pull. That's with a pot up. Although, granted, it's not an war pot, which I use a single war pot. So if there is, I guess if there is an answer to that question, it could be use war instead. And I could probably, now especially since they're nerfing, I really want to check out the pot nerfs, because, yeah, I think they're cutting the requirements in half, right? Is that correct? If that is correct, then, oh yeah, let's get a couple 20 procs, man. Let's make it happen. We'll get some stacks of war and just come in here and crush shit, but... I think a lot of it is an unfair comparison to my Paladin, which is frankly an outlier. There's no other tank doing that type of damage, I can't imagine. I've seen Bears and Vengeance and even Brewmaster do some nice burst, but DK can do that too. They just need all their CDs up, and they need to have everything proper. But when it lines up the way it does, then it's an easy mode. Like they really do a lot of damage. But when they have absolutely nothing, as you see there, I mean, look at that number, dude. That's just kind of embarrassing, man. Like I look at that number and I'm like, yo, I'm fucking getting carried right now. And that's the way I feel. It's like if I can't even do 200k as a tank, I don't know why I'm in the dungeon. You know what I mean? They could have just brought another fucking damage dealer with Skittish, but. Anyway, once again, the DK is just carrying. I don't know. It's so silly. It's so silly to watch a Vengeance or a Havoc Demon Hunter do so little, and then see a Warlock do even less than that. So, yeah, we struggle here as well. A lot of casters down here. This is another tough thing, but great for. I think this is the stretch that I was thinking about when I made the comment earlier about just absolutely loving DK survivability. I have so many tools. And especially with Sefu's or whatever it's called, the ring. It's just a really, really nice thing to have, man, as a tank in a dungeon. It really is. It helps out. You can do a lot more damage with it, obviously, and it's just really beneficial, when you're already interrupting and all this stuff. So I think I do very well at mitigating damage here, but the problem is just simply keeping them on me. And, you know, without pot, like you see me, we're waiting there for pot. I'm marking mobs. I'm popping everything I can, and people are just still pulling threat. So I don't know what else to say other than just chill for a second. You know what I mean? Just chill out. Just let them attack me for a few seconds. I've been doing dungeons a lot this week, and people constantly still just roll into packs and AoE before I even get set up, you know? It's like, dude, I mean, I understand, like, that's how it normally is, but yeah, it's just, you're gonna kill yourself. I mean, they're literally killing themselves, you know? I don't know what to do about it, because the game's not focused around this anymore. I don't really care about threat any other day of the week, so it's really difficult to suddenly just flip that switch, you know? But hopefully some of you guys know a lot about Skittish. This is definitely Skittish and Volcanic. These are definitely my two worst, but obviously only applies when I'm tanking, so which I don't do a lot. So I don't really get to see much about Skittish. And typically I do it as a healer, and it's just, I fucking get threat all the time. Who gives a shit? I got Bubble, Bop, and DP. You know, I don't really care, so. But either way, I, as a tank, I'm struggling constantly. Now, the one good thing about DK, which is really useful for this dungeon, because people keep, especially on bosses, pulling... Watch this. This is kind of funny. I don't really know. I said let's summon the guy because he released, and the summon just doesn't work. We tried 3 times, and then finally the 3rd time it does work. So I don't really know why that's actually happening. If anybody does know, let me know. But... yeah, anyway, so we're just going to be sitting here waiting for this guy to get here. But yeah, the cool thing about Blood DK is that they have 2 taunts. I guess are they the only tank with 2 taunts now? I'm not sure, but yeah, you can death grip the mob, and you could gore fiend. So that's one thing that does help. When mobs are kind of just running around, you can just gore fiends them. It doesn't obviously taunt them, but yeah, it can help them a lot. So there you go. See, without grip there, that mob is going to be flying around. The more damage they do to it, the better it gets, and of course, the less damage I do it, the worse it gets. So grip is really invaluable. I think a lot of people underestimate how important grip can be. I can pretty much tell you, we can sit down at a group. Like, I did like 5 or 6 dungeons as prop paladin the other day, and every single one of them, there was at least one case where I was like, man, I really wish I had fucking grip. And a lot of it is Niltharian's Lair. That's one of the most egregious ones. There's so many casters, and then the pelters, and the mobs that just refuse to come into melee or leave melee. But it's like this in every single dungeon. Archway, Court, let's see. I mean, every single dungeon. This one, of course, every single dungeon has mobs that it would be beneficial to be able to grip them. Even if it's just for the DP. Like, look at that. Mob is out there. You see that mob back there? He's not getting hit by our AoE. You see? And I'm fucking just panicking so hard because I haven't played this character in like 4 months. I'm just straight panicking. I should have gripped that mob like 10 minutes ago, but I finally do it. And then it jumps again. So, you know, if I did it properly at the time, we would have had it up again. We do have 2 DKs though, so that guy's not doing it either. I think, yeah, there we go. He finally does it. Or maybe that one was me too, but either way, yeah, it's an important thing for DPS. Corralling mobs is probably, yeah, it's an underrated thing. I think a lot of people don't really, they underestimate how important this type of thing is. It makes the packs go smoother. It can interrupt casts, and it of course can prevent mobs, you know, from running away from you, which is even worse. There's a couple mobs, you know, there's a lot of mobs in this set of 5-mans. This, you know, these however many dungeons we're gonna have now, 13 dungeons, I guess. Mythic plus dungeons that are going to have a lot of mobs. I'm sure there's cases in carries, and I don't really notice it because usually when you do carry, you're not really in any huge rush. Especially, you know, other than Nightbane, I guess definitely never a rush. But I guarantee you there's going to be things that it's going to change the way we look at the dungeon. The dungeon's laid out in a very specific way, and I can already see a couple really dangerous parts of trash that, oh my god, like a 10 Kara is going to be, I'm just not looking forward to it. But anyway, that's that. This is the boss here, of course, and we're done here. DK once again, Frost DK just shining. Like I said, Frost is incredibly strong. The guy who's playing the Demon Hunter is just bad though, and the guy who's playing the Warlock is, I guess, you know, he's definitely the most. I think he was the most undergeared out of everyone. I can't really remember. It's at the start of the video. But it's just not, I don't think Destro's the spec guy. So some things to talk about for this video. If you guys can help me with skittering, any help with skittering, as we call it, skittish, but any help with skittering would be awesome. I don't really know how it works. If you guys have any facts, like proof, videos, blue posts, something like that, please let me know. Otherwise, it's just speculation, I guess, but that's fine too. If you have any help with that, that'd be great. And then tell me a little bit about what you guys think of Destro. I don't know much about Destro. I've never really seen it, this expansion, this whole really expansion. I recognize that it was really strong at one point. I remember seeing a couple, I think it was like the first 10 in the world was done with a Destro lock. But otherwise, I haven't really seen any. And then, yeah, let's talk about 7.2, man. So there's going to be, like I said, another disjointed video coming out. I'm just going to show the healing here quick, though. It's pretty cool to see. But otherwise, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video as well, even though that's in the past for me. But, yeah, we'll see you guys there. And then 7.2, which hopefully we'll get a lot of nice dungeon videos coming up with 7.2.